Let's get to Tesla this morning, on track for 7 straight weeks of declines. That is the longest weekly losing streak for Tesla on record. Shares have lost about 40% of their value since the president took office in January. Wipes out about $500 billion in market cap. Since then, it's larger, though, by the way, that is larger than the market caps of Costco, Exxon, Oracle, and Netflix. Our guest today names Tesla, though. His best idea adds it to the list, and his outperform rating is intact. Target of 550. Joining us here at Post 9 this morning is Dan Ives, Wedbush Securities Global Head of Securities. Dan, good to see you.
Yeah,
Happy
great
Friday.
to be here.
Was this a tough call? A tough reiteration?
I mean, to some extent, I think this sell-off is going to be an opportunity. I think years from now, it's a generational opportunity. Because it's my view, I get, in terms of all the frustration, noise, the Doge, the distractions, the brand issues, even some of the sales numbers that we've seen in Europe, China, I think it's going to be short-lived. I mean, my view is they have probably from a technology perspective, in terms of autonomous, in terms of the lower-cost vehicle, and where I see things over the next 12 to 18 months, I think they're actually going to go in to their biggest part of their technology cycle that they've had, maybe forever, maybe in the last decade.
Does that require Elon to distance himself from the brand or recommit himself to the brand?
Look, I think this is one where I continue to believe the bet for the ages was Musk's bet on Trump. Because of autonomous, deregulatory, and I believe autonomous is worth ultimately $1 trillion alone to the ultimate story. From a brand perspective, look, we think about 10 to 15%, maybe the sales decline is related to some of the brand issues. But based on all of our survey work, we think only about less than 5% of Tesla holders today, so Tesla owners, will ultimately think twice, potentially, from a brand perspective because of Musk. So that's still pretty limited relative to where I view actually the whole growth opportunity.
What about the whole distraction? I mean, he's always had a lot of jobs and a lot of CEO roles, and so this has always been a constant question. But now that he's spending so much time in Washington with the president, working on Doge, does that make you wonder about his running it?
Yeah, look, we went through similar things when it came to Twitter X. I mean, we've gone through other situations as we've talked about. I believe this is something where 3-6 months from now, I think you'll see him a lot more dialed into Tesla in terms of as we go into FSD, as we go into autonomous. I also think, perception's reality, and I get that, but from all the work that we've done talking to people at Tesla, I actually think he is driving a lot of the bigger initiatives at Tesla, despite the view that he's basically 110% into Doge, and that's where all of his time is.
Where do you come up with this 5% number? I only ask that in terms of people who might change, because, typically, I think it's fair to say his customer has been sort of center-left, let's say.
Sure.
They've been environmentally focused. Republicans, perhaps not as much so, at least in certain parts, and so less likely to buy one. I don't know. The Journal today, the story, they cite a lot of people. It's anecdotal, saying, I'm going to give it up at the end of the lease. Where do you come up with 5%?
Yeah, I mean, for us, 1,000 Tesla owners, I mean, it's less than 5%.
So you did a survey of 1,000
Tesla. So to me, of 1,000 customers, less. And I could also tell you, this is something, as I've talked to others at dealerships, whether it's in Europe, what we've seen even in China, and what I believe we're going to see in the U.S., I get the brand words. It is a dark time right now for Tesla bulls. But to me, it is not the time to head for the hills. This is actually the time to double down. The reason we add to the top picks list, I think we look out 6-12 months from now. I think this is ultimately, the stock is a double.
Right.
Over the next
not on cars, though, right? Is it on Optimus? What's it on?
I think 90% of the value is going to be autonomous and Optimus-driven. I think autonomous itself is worth more value than all of Tesla today. And I just think as we've gone through many periods, despite the frustration over the years, that has always been the opportunity. And I just think right now we are going into what could be actually the biggest golden path for Musk and Tesla, despite right now what feels like a white knuckle moment, just bad news after bad news.
You're right. There have been those moments in the past, and the stock has recovered. Dan, we got to keep it a little tight today. It's good to see you.
No,
thanks for coming in, Dan Ives.
Is Tesla, which is close to a 50% drawdown from the high, is that close to a bottom? Down 7 straight weeks. That's the longest losing streak ever. Is it near a bottom? You own the stock. You're a big supporter of it. You continue to believe in it. It's down 13% this week alone.
Yeah, I think that right now the technicals, it's so far below the 200-day. So, I need to have some technical building to be able to add to the position. Right now, I closed all my calls out, right? Because that's what you do. You sell calls high, and then you close them out. And so you want to see some consolidation. Right now, it feels here in free fall. I absolutely believe, Dan Ives' bullish narrative. I think that people are very short-sighted about the refresh cycle with Juniper and the Model 3. Those are coming. Robotics are coming. But just the sentiment and the pounding on Elon is overbearing the stock.
That's it.
All right, we know it's been an awful run for investors in Tesla the last few months. The stock is on pace for a record 7-week losing streak. And in that time, Tesla has lost over $550 billion in market cap. Here's an RBI. Just 13 companies in the S&P 500 are even worth more than $500 billion. And that's what Tesla lost. Tesla stock's now more than 40% off its record high that it hit back in December. And by the way, it's erased nearly all the gains going back to the election. Outside of that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? Let's talk more now about reasons to be bullish on Tesla. Itay Michaeli joining us now, likes Tesla and General Motors as well. Itay, why the upgrade? Why now?
Sure. We're happy to have taken coverage here at TD Cowen of the auto sector. So we transferred coverage over. And yes, we did put a buy on Tesla, $388 price target. Look, Tesla is always a highly debated stock, to your point. But what we find kind of really helps the stock work, ultimately, what we focus on are sentiment shifting catalysts. And with the stock down about 50% from the highs, and yes, Q1 will be challenging. I think that's pretty widely known. We do see a number of potentially consequential catalysts beyond Q1, both on the EV side and the AV side. And the setup, frankly, reminds us of last year's, where the stock was under a lot of pressure in the first half of the year before sentiment improved in the second half of the year. We see a similar pattern here as we want to be there for these potential catalysts that will come beyond Q1.
Well, you can go to they don't really have dealerships, but they have selling locations. There's one near me, and there's people that stand out in front in New York and other places with signs down with Elon Musk. Do you worry it's going to scare off Tesla buyers?
Yeah, look, both bull and bear cases have legitimate points. That is one of them. There are some brand concerns here in the near term. But the bigger issue, we think, for the company has been on the EV product side, just a lack of product renewal up until the Model 3 refresh last year and the Model Y that's being refreshed right now. And you do have a number of products the company's talked about that are going to be launched over the next couple of years. And product cycles tend to be great catalysts for automaker stocks to help revive market share. By our numbers, we think Tesla has actually lost quite a bit of market share in some of the heaviest EV counties in the U.S., and that it could lead to a recovery. Plus, there's a lot of other parts of the country where EV demand is still low, and new products could be the catalyst there. One of our themes in our initiation, Brian, is don't sleep on the U.S. EV market. With 2 cars per household, imagine a scenario where people wake up and say, I want to have one EV and one ICE vehicle in my household. If that were to happen over time, EV demand could inflect very quickly.
You just described my entire town. Here's the thing, though. GM just released a Cadillac Escalade EV that's like 10,000 pounds and like half the length of a semi-tractor trailer truck and starts at $130,000. I mean, I'm not picking on GM. There's a buyer for it. I'm sure they're smart people. That's why they did it. But like, where does the EV market go? How much are we willing to pay for a car? And I bought an EV. I own an EV, SUV, that goes 30% less than it's advertised. Let's be realistic.
Yeah. Look, I think EV prices have come down. Escalade certainly is a high price point. But when you think about kind of sticking with GM for a moment, the Equinox EV, the Blazer EV, the new Cadillac Optic EV that's launching right now, and of course even in Tesla's case and other automakers' case, they are now becoming much more affordable. The EV market, we think, does need new product. New products help expand market coverage, and of course affordability is still a headwind, but it has gotten better over time. So we think as this market develops over time, there's still a lot of potential for growth. Again, to your point on your town, at 2 vehicles per household, our EV adoption setup is very different than the rest of the world. If we have one ICE and one EV across large parts of the population, that could drive much more EV demand than people commonly realize.
One for driving around town, one for the road trip. Over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go. Itay Michaeli of TD Cowen, you made a lot of Tesla bulls happy. Thank you, folks.
Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.